There are truths about love that rarely arrive early in life. Most people do not understand them. When love is still light, when everything still feels possible, when the heart is still innocent enough to believe that strong feelings can solve everything. Usually those truths appear later, after someone has already loved deeply, after they have waited longer than they should, after they have tried to save something that was already quietly fading, and especially after the moment when they sit alone in complete silence and begin to realize that love itself was never the only thing being chosen. Because sooner or later, almost everyone reaches a point where one quiet understanding begins to form. Choosing someone you love deeply and choosing someone you can build a life with are not always the same decision. When people first fall in love, they almost always believe emotion is the strongest truth. A powerful feeling can seem more convincing than logic. Sometimes one conversation is enough to leave a mark. Sometimes one look creates a sense of closeness that words cannot explain, and suddenly someone becomes important without warning. A normal day changes because they appeared in it. A message feels larger than it should. Their voice stays in your mind long after the moment ends, and slowly, without noticing, your emotional world begins making space for them. This is often how love begins, not through decision, but through emotional recognition. Something inside you responds before your mind has time to question anything, because love in its earliest stage is rarely rational. It does not ask practical questions. It does not pause to ask, can this person stay gentle when pressure arrives? Can they remain respectful when disappointment appears? Can they carry their own pain without turning it into damage? At the beginning, love asks only one thing. Deeply do I feel when I am near this person? And when the feeling is strong enough, people often believe that strength itself means truth. But strong feeling and long-term truth are not always connected. Someone can awaken the deepest parts of you and still be unable to walk beside you through ordinary life. Someone can make you feel more alive than anyone before and still not know how to remain emotionally steady when life becomes difficult. This is where many beautiful beginnings quietly become painful later, because emotional intensity creates a powerful beginning. But life always asks for something deeper. At first, people rarely see clearly. They see through hope, through longing, through imagination, and sometimes through need. A quiet person looks profound. A distant person looks mysterious. A difficult person looks emotionally rare. And because the heart always wants meaning, it often fills empty spaces with beautiful assumptions. People imagine depth where there may only be silence. They imagine emotional richness where there may only be instability. They imagine future safety inside present excitement. Because when someone makes us feel deeply, we naturally want to believe that feeling must lead somewhere beautiful. But time always removes imagination slowly. And eventually, real life begins. The beautiful conversations become ordinary conversations. The carefully chosen words become natural reactions. The moments once planned become everyday presence. And then a different person appears. Not because they changed, but because now life has removed the distance that once protected illusion. You begin noticing how they react when tired, how they respond when frustrated, how they speak when they do not feel admired, how they behave when life no longer centers around emotion. And this is where love becomes honest, because the real question is no longer, do I feel deeply? The real question becomes, can this person remain emotionally safe when life becomes ordinary? That question changes everything. Because loving someone inside beautiful moments is one kind of experience, but sharing years inside ordinary reality requires something entirely different. A lover belongs to emotional possibility. A wife belongs to emotional endurance. A lover meets you when both people still want to show their best side. A wife meets you when your best side is not available. She meets your fatigue, your unfinished thoughts, your failures, your financial worries, your silence, your days when nothing feels clear, and you meet hers too. That is why marriage cannot survive on emotion alone, because no one enters marriage bringing only beauty. Everyone brings hidden weight, pressure, fear, old wounds, habits they never fully healed, unspoken expectations. And sooner or later, the person beside you must know how to stay near that weight without making life heavier. That is rare, Because many people know how to create closeness when everything feels beautiful. Far fewer know how to protect closeness when life becomes difficult. There are people who create unforgettable passion. Their presence feels electric. Their absence feels painful. Their love leaves marks that remain for years. But often the same intensity that creates unforgettable emotion also creates instability. Around them you begin adjusting constantly, thinking carefully before speaking, watching tone, predicting reactions, trying to avoid emotional damage, and slowly love becomes effort more than peace. That kind of love is difficult to forget, because intensity always leaves memory, but intensity is expensive. It asks too much energy for too long, and eventually even the deepest heart begins craving something else, not less love, but calmer love. A love that does not constantly require recovery, a presence that feels like emotional rest. This is often where maturity begins, because maturity changes what a person values. A younger heart is drawn toward emotional fire. An older heart still values warmth but begins protecting peace. Not because peace is boring, but because peace becomes precious after enough emotional storms. A mature person no longer asks only, "Who makes me feel the strongest?" They begin asking, "Who helps me remain whole?" Who allows silence without punishment? Who still chooses kindness when tired? Who does not make ordinary life feel emotionally dangerous? Because ordinary life is where marriage truly happens, not in beautiful trips, not in special dates, not in rare perfect moments. Marriage happens on ordinary evenings, when both people are tired, when one person is quiet, when something small could become conflict. And what protects love then is not passion. It is emotional discipline, a tone of voice, a small pause, a decision not to wound just because one is wounded. There are women who deeply attract a man emotionally. They stay in memory because they awaken something powerful. But there are other women who create something quieter, the feeling that life beside them would remain possible even when life becomes hard. That feeling often matters more than people admit, because deep inside what most people fear is not losing romance. It is living many years inside emotional instability. It is waking up every day never fully knowing whether peace will remain. And that is why many men eventually choose differently than they once imagined. Not because they stopped valuing love, but because they finally understand what kind of love survives reality. There is a quiet truth that many people discover too late. The person you loved most intensely is not always the person your future can breathe beside. Sometimes the deepest love arrives too early, before maturity, before self-control, before both people know how to protect love from their own unhealed parts. There is love, there is sincerity, there is longing, but still there is too much emotional weight for two people who do not yet know how to carry it carefully. And later, when maturity finally appears, choice changes. Not colder, not less human, just clearer. People no longer choose who creates the strongest emotional storm. They choose who makes staying feel natural, who makes returning feel easy, who does not require constant proof, who does not turn closeness into exhaustion. And perhaps that is why the deepest difference between a lover and a wife is not how much feeling exists. It is what happens to life itself when that person remains beside you for many years. Because in the end, a lover is someone who awakens movement in the heart, but a wife is someone whose presence quietly tells both heart and mind with this person. Life may still be difficult, but it will not feel like loneliness inside the difficulty.